At around 4:20 a.m., near Kuga, a coordinated Ukrainian strike shattered one of Russia's key satellite relay stations. Drones, electronic warfare, precision Vilka-M rockets, and ground teams moved in synchronized waves, overwhelming defenses. In less than 40 minutes, the attack disrupted a vital artillery command link, stretching from Donetsk to Bryansk. At 3:36 a.m., the forests surrounding the Kuga relay complex were still wrapped in darkness when the first movement appeared on Russian radar screens. Small signals flickered at the edge of detection, slow, low, and scattered across the southern approach. Within seconds, the number multiplied. 24 Ukrainian loitering munitions, each costing roughly $42,000, were gliding toward the facility at treetop height. To Russian operators inside the command bunker, it looked like the beginning of another routine drone probe, but this wave was different. Hidden among them were 14 decoy UAVs, inexpensive machines valued at barely $2,200 each, broadcasting false signatures that mimicked larger targets. Their job was simple: confuse the radar picture and force Russian defenses to react. Inside Kuga, alarms spread across the defensive network. 2 Tor M2 air defense batteries, systems worth more than $24 million each, rotated their radar arrays toward the approaching swarm. Moments later, a nearby Panzer S-1, valued at nearly $15 million, powered up its tracking radar and began assigning intercept solutions. Missiles launched into the dark sky. Brilliant streaks of light cut across the horizon as interceptors raced toward the incoming signals. One drone disappeared from the radar scope, then another. But the operators quickly noticed something strange. The sky was full of targets, far more than expected. Some signals split apart, others vanished and reappeared seconds later. Radar tracks overlapped, multiplied, and shifted in unpredictable ways. The defensive systems were firing, but many of the targets were nothing more than electronic ghosts. Within minutes, several expensive interceptor missiles had already been launched, yet the real Ukrainian strike had not even begun. Above the forest canopy, the remaining drones continued drifting silently toward Kuga, drawing Russian attention higher and farther away from the ground. And that was exactly the trap Ukraine wanted. At 3:49 a.m., while Russian radar crews were still focused on the drone swarm above Kuga, a quieter operation was already unfolding along the forest edge, several kilometers away. From a concealed position roughly 8.5 miles southwest of the relay complex, Ukrainian Bukovel AD electronic warfare vehicles, each valued at about $1.6 million, powered up their transmitters. Within seconds, powerful jamming signals began flooding the airwaves. The interference targeted L-band and X-band frequencies, the very channels Russian radars and satellite uplinks relied on. Inside the control room at Kuga, screens started flickering, tracking lines stuttered, signal strength dropped. Even backup navigation feeds briefly lost stability. For the operators, it was as if the entire electromagnetic environment had suddenly become unstable. But the disruption didn't stop there. High above the battlefield, long-range reconnaissance drones, each costing close to $85,000, began scanning the compound from over 20,000 feet. Their sensors mapped every radar mast, every power generator, and every reinforced bunker inside the relay complex. Meanwhile, on the ground, another Ukrainian team was moving closer. A 12-person infantry unit carrying 82mm mortars worth about $13,000 each advanced through dense woodland until they were less than 800 yards from the outer perimeter. Accompanying them were 6-wheeled robotic ground vehicles, small machines valued at roughly $35,000, creeping along maintenance trails and placing directional charges along potential reinforcement routes. Then, the first ground strike arrived. A single mortar round arced through the darkness and landed inside a Russian forward control trench. Seconds later, FPV drones, each worth about $9,000, dropped low through the trees and struck light vehicles near the perimeter. Suddenly, the battle around Kuga was no longer confined to the sky. Russia's defenders were now facing pressure from multiple directions at once, above, around, and increasingly from the forest itself. And yet, despite the chaos already unfolding, the most decisive moment of the operation had not arrived, because far away, at a hidden launch position nearly 50 kilometers from Kuga, a set of launch rails had just begun to move into firing position. What do you think happens next? The next few seconds would decide whether Kuga's defenses could hold, or whether the entire relay station was about to face its most devastating strike. At 4:21 a.m., the decisive strike arrived. A Ukrainian Vilka-M guided rocket, valued at roughly $245,000, cut through the night sky at more than Mach 3 and plunged directly toward the heart of the Kuga satellite relay station. Its target was unmistakable: the massive satellite uplink dome that coordinated Russian long-range artillery communications across multiple sectors. Seconds later, the rocket struck. The warhead detonated against the reinforced structure, sending a shockwave through the steel framework of the dome and shattering antenna relays mounted along its outer ring. Fragments of composite panels and signal equipment scattered across the compound as the uplink system suddenly lost power. Before the smoke even cleared, a second Vilka-M rocket slammed into the central data coordination shelter located just behind the uplink array. This bunker housed the servers responsible for transmitting targeting data to Russian artillery units positioned hundreds of kilometers away. The explosion ruptured cable conduits and ignited several backup generators stored beside the building. Flames spread across the roofline, while internal communications inside the relay complex began to fail. By the time Russian radar operators fully understood what was happening, 4 more Vilka-M rockets were already inbound. The defensive network reacted instantly. 2 Tor-M2 air defense batteries, each system worth approximately $24 million, locked onto the incoming targets and fired in interceptors toward the high-speed rockets. One missile successfully destroyed a Vilka-M in mid-air, nearly 12 kilometers from the facility. A second interceptor damaged another rocket, forcing it to tumble off course before it reached the perimeter. But the remaining 3 rockets continued forward. As they approached the final phase of their flight, their onboard navigation systems adjusted trajectory slightly, correcting for electronic interference and maintaining a stable course toward their assigned targets inside the complex. Within less than 20 seconds, those rockets closed the final distance to Kuga. One struck the secondary communications tower, collapsing several antenna masts and severing signal lines feeding the relay grid. Another detonated near the backup power station, sending burning debris across the service yard. The third rocket slammed into the administration control block, triggering a chain reaction that damaged multiple satellite relay panels. In under half a minute, the center of Kuga's communications infrastructure had been critically compromised. What Russian engineers had built to coordinate artillery fire across hundreds of kilometers was suddenly struggling to maintain even local command links. At 4:22 a.m., only moments after the first explosions rocked the Kuga relay complex, Russia's defensive network surged into full emergency response. Inside the operations bunker, radar operators watched as multiple high-speed tracks continued racing toward the facility. Data from counter-battery sensors and early warning systems confirmed the worst possibility. The strike was still underway. 2 Tor-M2 air defense systems, each worth nearly $25 million, immediately recalculated firing solutions. Their radar arrays pivoted toward the incoming objects, while interceptor missiles launched in rapid pairs, accelerating toward the approaching threats at several times the speed of sound. For a moment, the defensive picture looked stable. One interceptor successfully detonated near an incoming rocket, roughly 9 miles from the perimeter, breaking it apart in mid-air. A second interception damaged another missile, sending fragments spiraling into the forest short of the complex, but the engagement was far from over. 3 Ukrainian Vilka-M rockets, still traveling at more than 2,300 miles per hour, continued closing the distance. As they entered the final stage of flight, their onboard guidance systems adjusted course slightly, altering their approach angles. That small maneuver changed everything. The shift forced Russian tracking radars to recalculate trajectories in real time, and the defensive systems suddenly faced a fractured targeting picture. A nearby Panzer S-1 unit, a hybrid platform valued at around $15 million, attempted to intercept the remaining rockets using a combination of missiles and rapid-fire cannons. Two interceptors launched almost simultaneously. One detonated too early. The other briefly locked onto a target before losing guidance as the rocket altered its descent path. As a final measure, older ZSU-23-4 Shilka anti-aircraft guns opened fire from the outer perimeter. Streams of tracer rounds climbed into the night sky, but against objects moving at hypersonic speed, the effort had little effect. Within less than 30 seconds, the outcome became clear. 2 rockets had been stopped, but 3 had broken through the defensive shield, and they were now diving directly toward the most sensitive systems still standing inside Kuga's communications hub. At 4:24 a.m., as fires spread across the damaged relay towers at Kuga, Russian command attempted to regain control of the situation from the air. Early warning radars detected unusual activity along the western corridor. Within minutes, 2 Su-30 SM multi-role fighters, each aircraft valued at nearly $36 million, lifted off from a forward airstrip near Bryansk, accelerating toward the strike zone at high speed. Their mission was clear: intercept Ukrainian aircraft believed to be supporting the attack and restore control of the skies. But the response was already anticipated. Orbiting high above the western edge of the battlefield, at nearly 32,000 feet, a pair of Ukrainian MiG-29 fighters, worth roughly $24 million each, had been holding position for over 15 minutes. Their radars remained silent, while onboard sensors monitored Russian radio traffic and radar emissions across the region. The moment the incoming fighters crossed the projected interception line, Ukrainian pilots moved. The MiG-29s descended slightly and locked on to the approaching aircraft using RR-27ER long-range air-to-air missiles, weapons capable of engaging targets more than 45 miles away. Warning signals immediately appeared inside the Russian cockpits. Instead of moving into an interception run, the Su-30s were forced into defensive maneuvers. At the same time, further south of Kuga, 2 Ukrainian Su-27 fighters, each valued at approximately $30 million, activated electronic countermeasure pods designed to interfere with airborne radar tracking. Bursts of electronic noise and decoy signals began disrupting the radar picture Russian pilots relied on to track targets below. Within minutes, the airspace above Kuga shifted dramatically. The Russian fighters, now focused on avoiding potential missile engagement, climbed away from the strike corridor rather than pushing deeper into the area. Their attempt to stabilize the situation had been interrupted before it could fully develop. Below them, Ukrainian reconnaissance drones and support aircraft continued operating with far less resistance. For a brief but critical window, the skies over the Kuga relay complex were no longer contested. They were temporarily controlled by Ukraine. At 4:26 a.m., 3 Vilka-M rockets struck the Kuga relay complex at high speed. One destroyed the satellite uplink array, another hit the backup power station, and the third damaged the central data bunker. Within seconds, signals collapsed, cutting artillery coordination across multiple sectors. Systems failed, communications stalled, and the battlefield fell silent. As fires spread, Ukrainian reconnaissance confirmed the strike. In under 40 minutes, the operation crippled a critical Russian communication hub. As flames rose over Kuga, artillery units lost vital satellite links and waited for orders that never came. In under 40 minutes, a synchronized strike silenced a network spanning hundreds of kilometers. The attack proved modern warfare depends on timing and coordination, not just power. If such a protected hub can fall this fast, what does it mean for future strategy? Share your thoughts and subscribe for more stories.